Hi, I'm Selena. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing my weekly reviews. Every week-ish, I'm trying to do a couple of reviews for the books I've read recently, and you can see my thoughts on them before the wrap-up, and you can see a little bit more in-depth thoughts on them. And today I'm going to be reviewing two books. One of them is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, and the other is Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend. And the first review I'm going to do is my review of Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. So Jurassic Park is an adult, maybe classic, I think it's a classic sci-fi book. It is also a thriller, as the pacing and the way it is written is very thriller-esque. It is very suspenseful and thrilling the whole time. And my background with this story is that I, like many people, grew up watching the Jurassic Park movies, and I love them. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's maybe my favorite movie. I love Jurassic Park, the movie version. And I was really worried that I wouldn't love the book the way I love the movie, because the movie is so special to me. And I've heard somewhat mixed feelings from people who read the book after watching the movie. And I've heard some people love it and some people don't as much. And I just didn't want it to be one of those books that I liked the movie more than the book. So I was worried I'd be disappointed because my expectations were so high. I didn't need to be worried. I loved this book. It was a 5-star book. It's a new favorite. I can't recommend this book enough. I forgot to say this in the beginning, but I'm gonna throw in right here that I don't talk spoilers with these reviews, but for this one, I will say that a lot of the premise of this has been, I don't know if you would say spoiled, but it's very well known what this book is about. And so if you want to go in blind, if you've managed to avoid knowing anything at all about Jurassic Park, then I would actually recommend you to go in with as little information as possible, because I do think Michael Crichton wrote it with that intention. But you obviously don't have to. You can still enjoy the book if you hear my premise of it, even though it will be giving some information that's not abundantly clear at the beginning of the book. I don't know. It's still the premise. Like, I'm not spoiling any plot points. But like, if it's more than you want to know, you may not want to watch this review until you read it. Same goes for Nevermoor, although I think it applies more with Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is about a park called Jurassic Park, which is basically a kind of amusement park / zoo that specializes in dinosaurs. Basically, this guy named John Hammond has had this idea to have the new genetic technology bring back dinosaurs. They managed to do it, and he has created a park where people will one day hopefully be able to come and enjoy seeing the dinosaurs. The park's not open yet, and they're finding that it's harder to open this park than they anticipated. And you basically follow one-ish day, probably like a 24 or 36 hour period for the most part, where these paleontologists, mathematicians, lawyers, basically people who've been consulted about the park, whether they know it or not, or people who've invested in the park to come see how it's doing. And basically they're here to see the park and give their opinions on whether it can run or not. And as you can probably imagine, this idea doesn't go very well, and a lot happens during this period, and I don't want to say anything else. So first thing I want to just say, I don't want to have this review be a constant comparison between Jurassic Park, the book, and Jurassic Park, the movie, but I will just say, if you were like me and you were expecting the movie to be very similar to the book, I thought the movie was just so good. They must have taken a lot of it from the book, and they did in some ways, but the book is very, very different. It has a lot of different scenes. A lot of the scenes that we see in the movie are modified. They took the story of Jurassic Park and modified it for a movie, which is fine. I have no problem with that. I think they're both good versions of the same story. I just like the book better because of the things that Michael Crichton was able to do with this book that there wasn't time to do in the movie. But yeah, I assume the movie was so good because it was a lot like the book. And I think that it was so good because I believe Michael Crichton helped with it or something. I don't know. But the book is able to explore a lot of things that the movie can't get to, like I just said. And in this, in my copy, it's 400 pages. In a 400-page thriller, Crichton is able to put in so many scenes and so much information and so much background that I just loved. One of the major differences is where the book and the movie start. They're different. And I'm going to use this to transition into a non-movie related thing where I'm just telling you about the structure of this book, because I could see it be off-putting to some people if you're not aware of it going in, or if it's just not your type of thing. But basically we have a very long sort of introduction with this book. We begin in a completely different place with the park, and the book really gives you a lot of background on the idea of this park, where it came from, who is involved, how it has been carried out thus far, and some of the complications. We are outside of the park and we're seeing the effects on nearby places. We really are just seeing a look at this park and its background without ever being in the park. And this whole time, it's not just info dumping. There is action happening. There's really, harrowing scenes in the beginning of this book. Not quite as harrowing as what is to come, but, still sort of like, what is going on here? And it really is setting up both mysteries for the later half of the book to resolve, and it is also setting up this park in a way where it gives you like pieces of information and background without you ever going there, and it builds suspense without ever seeing the park. And I just thought that was brilliant. I enjoyed being outside of the park. I enjoyed seeing every leg of this whole thing come together and then converge at the park. But if you are someone who just wants to see the park stuff, we take a while to get there. So just know that going in, or maybe just watch the movie or something. I don't know. We also follow a lot of different characters in this book. We follow a lot of different perspectives. We switch perspectives a lot, and a lot of times we'll only be in the perspective's head for a few pages. I think that works really well with the sort of thrillery aspect and the suspense building aspect of this book, but if that will annoy you, I would just go unaware. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed who they were and what they did for the plot, even if I didn't like them all the time. I think that these characters are well built and that they feel like a whole person. Like, I can tell you things about several of the main characters, and they just, as I was reading them, they felt like a whole person. However, this book is not character driven nor character focused by any means. This is a plot driven book. Definitely. That's kind of the whole point of this. These characters do not have the power to move the plot. They only have the power to move the plot only so much. They're not just sort of trapped by it. Like, they do make choices and they do respond to their situation. But the whole point of this book is that things get out of control. Things get out of their control. And a lot of this book is the characters sort of desperately clinging on to the control that they have. And I think that the plot-driven nature of this book adds to that, definitely. Like, there isn't a way to do this book without it being plot-driven. And we also are much more focused on the dinosaurs and the ideas and the plot and the action, much more than we are a character arc, if that makes any sense. I would also say, if you liked Jurassic Park but want a more character-driven version of Jurassic Park, I would highly recommend Into the Drowning Deep, because that had major Jurassic Park vibes for me, but it was much more character-focused, and it follows a similar plot structure to Jurassic Park, but it's longer, and a lot of that length is based off of creating really unique characters that you really feel for a lot and very deeply. So yeah, just putting that out there. This isn't really a character book, but the characters are good. I enjoy the characters for what they are. When we get to the park, it is the environment and the world of the park is so immersive. I loved being there because I felt like I could see everything. I felt like Crichton gave me a way to see it, Like, I do recognize I've watched the movie 1,000 times, and there are definitely some visuals that I pulled directly from the movie because, I'm not the biggest dinosaur expert. But there were others. I mean, for the vast majority of this book, I saw what Crichton was describing to me, and what he was describing was very different than the movie. And so I know personally that most of my visuals do come from Crichton's description, and he's not a description heavy writer, in my opinion, but his descriptions are so vivid and so on point that when he puts them in his book, he creates the scene perfectly, and he does it in such a way that leaves you sort of awestruck, because the characters are supposed to feel like that, because you're in this park, which is amazing and powerful and intimidating. And I felt that way with his descriptions. I think he did very well creating this atmosphere and making it just amazing. And on that note, in my opinion, that stuff was just as thrilling as the later action in the book. I loved learning about everything that they were talking about. I loved seeing the park. There's a lot of scenes that are extended from what I was expecting, and it just got you used to the atmosphere, and you got to see a lot more. You got to feel the environment a lot more. It doesn't feel like you're seeing one small part of the park. It really feels like you're seeing everywhere. And that, I just found that really engaging. I think some people could see that as info dumping, or I could see people being like, okay, just get on with it. And I'm not saying I never had those moments, but I do think that for the most part, I loved what he did with this and how much he built this atmosphere and I thought it was thrilling. The action later only gets more thrilling. It is a thriller, and it gets a lot more brutal than I was expecting, so just be aware that like there is pretty graphic violence. He did not do any fade to black. He cut scenes off a lot less than I thought he would, a lot later than I thought he would. And I really enjoyed that because it felt like he kept the stakes up the whole time, and he kept the brutality and power of the park consistent the whole time. And I think that point was never lost on me, and that's what I loved about it. I also felt like it really helped me to be concerned about the characters because Crichton was willing to go places I wasn't sure he would. And I mean, it made me more invested in the characters because the ones I loved and was really invested in, I was really invested in when they were in dangerous situations. And the ones I didn't like, I was just sort of like wondering, I was still like wondering what was going to happen and stuff. And I was wondering how their actions would lead to other things. I was really invested in all of the actions these characters took and the things that happened to them. And I think that is a really good laying of suspense because not only does the plot do that, but his character work does that as well. If you're not someone who likes philosophizing in their books, I'm usually not someone who likes that either. This book may not be for you. It was for me, and I think the reason why it was and why it didn't bother me is because it is a good part of the book, especially Dr. Malcolm, when his dialogue is a lot of philosophizing. But I enjoyed the ideas that were presented, and I do think that while this book's point is its argument, it is its points, it is its philosophies, and the ideas it sort of exploring, it doesn't just do it through someone preaching at you. It does it through the action. It does it through the consequences of the plot. And that's what I really loved about this. I thought it was masterfully done, beautifully constructed. And there were so many scenes, just on a very scene-by-scene level. There were so many scenes that felt so iconic in the same way that I considered the T-Rex scene iconic from the movie. Like, there's so many scenes like that nobody knows about because they haven't read the book. And, that's fine. I'm not trying to shame anyone for not reading the book. But I was just like, this is so good and no one's read it. And I could see it all so vividly. The action was so good. And I really just think if you want to get a different Jurassic Park experience that is somehow better than the movie and that just has so many iconic scenes, so many things make a lot more sense in the book, and so many things that the book has time to explore that the movie does not, I would definitely recommend reading this book. And I would recommend reading it if you haven't seen the movie either, because it's such a great, thrilling, amazing story with lots of great ideas. And just on a writing level, I thought it was superb. I thought it was great. It's one of my all-time favorites, and I recommend it if it sounds like your thing. And then moving on to the second review, I don't own a physical copy of this one, so I'm just gonna put up a picture. This is Nevermoor by Jessica Townsend. Again, like I said with Jurassic Park, if you're not interested in knowing anything about this book, I would not watch this video. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I am going to go into some detail on the premise and things like that and what I liked and didn't like. So if you don't want to hear that, I would exit out now. So this is a middle grade high fantasy, I would say, but it has elements of portal fantasy. This was 5 stars. It's maybe my new favorite middle grade series. And if I have a comfort series, this one might be it. I don't know. Might be a little early to call that because I've only read this first book, but I don't know. So this is a nonsensical, whimsical middle grade high fantasy about a girl named Morgan Crow who basically grows up knowing that she is a cursed child. And what that means is that she's not going to live past the age that she was born in. So when that age ends, which they think approximately will be like 12 years, she will die. And she has a really sad life because people really don't want her around. But on her death day, she is taken away and whisked off to Nevermoor to possibly join the Wondrous Society, which is sort of a society for people with knacks, which are like magical talents, basically. But in order to get into this society, which is kind of a promise of family and friends and loyalty to her and comfort, which is something she's never had, she has to complete the trials. There are 4 trials she must complete, and if she completes them in a satisfactory way, she might make it to the Wondrous Society. This book is very intentionally following in the footsteps of other children's classics, children's stories, children's fantasy. Specifically, one of the biggest parallels is the series that shall not be named. I don't like bringing that series up at all, but I do just want to mention that if you're looking for another series to replace that one, this one might do well for you because it does intentionally follow that same structure, and I think intentionally talk back to that series in some ways. I mean, come on, Cursed Childs. There's literally a line that seems like it's talking about a certain screenplay, and I was cracking up because it was dragging it. So yeah, that's obviously maybe one influence you could argue, but I also think it puts itself in the direct lineage of things like Mary Poppins. I mean, there's these umbrellas that they have that they can use to sort of float down from high heights, and I don't know what else, and that felt very Mary Poppins-esque to me. I even had a Christmas Carol vibes at one point. It very much felt like it was trying to be in that tradition, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really nice to feel the nostalgia of all those things. I love all those books. And to have them like talk back to that lineage while taking the best things from them and putting a completely unique spin on them, because this book did feel very unique to me, despite me saying that it is in the lineage of all these things and it has these things in common or whatever. It felt like its own book to me, and it felt very original. I really enjoyed Morgan's journey from someone who was very neglected and unloved and didn't really have any friends or family or people who really showed her love, and going from that to where she ends up. Like, I really enjoyed seeing her journey and seeing her make friends, seeing her find family, like found family basically. And at the same time, this book keeps you guessing, because I do think it keeps you guessing about what is best for Morgan, what she really needs to be doing. And it kept a lot of mystery alive, and it made me very invested in Morgan's story, because I was constantly wondering, oh no, Morgan, is this something you should be doing? Is this going to be safe for you? I don't know. There were so many lovable side characters with great relationships with Morgan. I loved seeing her relationships with them grow and change, and how they, went with the plot and stuff. I really enjoyed that. The magic of this world was kind of amazing. It's hard to explain this magic, because it is sort of there all the time and also sort of not. It's like background and like forefront at the same time. I don't really know how to explain that, but basically there's a lot of like politics around the magic going on in the background that doesn't really affect Morgan's story right now. But we do sort of know that there's different access to magic in different places, it seems, and it affects the people of Nevermoor more than it does other people, and so they have more access to magic. There's more people with knacks in Nevermoor. There's the Wonder Societies in Nevermoor. There seems to be other ways that magic is handled, but we don't really know about a lot of those. We just sort of see how the magic affects Morgan, and for a lot of the book, she doesn't really have access to that. And so we see a lot of magic coming from the world and the people around her, but not a lot coming from Morgan. And it was still so whimsical and beautiful, with a very grounded sort of main character. It was very nonsensical at times. And the world building, I thought the way the magic and the world was described was really beautiful. The magical elements of this world were so beautifully written, and they were great. I loved the magic of this world. It is a very soft magic system, so if that's not your thing, I wouldn't recommend this book. But the softness of the magic gives it a lot more whimsy and funness to the magic, I guess. Oh, and the magic is called Wonder, I'm pretty sure. It took me a while to figure that out, but it's called Wonder, so it feels weird even saying magic, because they never use the word magic. They use wonder. This book does have a very nonsensical tone, so I will just warn you about that. If you're not someone for absurdism or nonsense in your stories, then maybe this isn't for you, because that is a very big part of it. I think that's part of why I loved it so much, because I do love that stuff done well. One thing that I found kind of odd in this like high fantasy world, because this technically is a high fantasy world, like it's all one world, but with like different countries, it's just that Nevermoor is sort of hidden, I guess. I don't really know. So like she crosses into Nevermoor, and that's sort of portal fantasy-esque, but it's all one world that's not ours. It's influenced by ours, definitely, but it's not ours. And so I don't really know. It's a high fantasy technically, but I don't know. The genre, it bends genre a lot. But one thing that I found a little weird was, in this sort of high fantasy world, Christmas is like a really big holiday. And so obviously it's very influenced by like Western culture. I do think that the Christmas was included to have the sense of wonder about Christmas in Nevermoor society, and I think the author just wanted a chance to show off the magic and just make it be fun for a lot of kids. But I did think about that. I did think it was a little odd. I loved this book. I loved how I felt when I read it. I loved the plot and the characters. I thought it was so fun. It's a new favorite, and I highly recommend it. Thank you for watching me review these two books. I hope you decide to pick one of them up, or both of them if you haven't already. If you read these books, let me know what you thought of them down below in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye.